every single one of us here, unless we're real young, has some wounds. And I don't mean some always physically. We've all got those too. I'm talking about wounds from interaction with other people. And most probably every one of us here still is carrying just a little bit of some resentment to something or other. And the longer we harbor the wounds and the longer we nurse the resentments, they're like cancers that take all our energy. They diminish us. And so much energy then is sapped from us. They just kind of eat away at our hearts. And sometimes, after many years, we believe that a particular wound is gone, and then we still discover traces of it. And this gets in the way of everything else. It's part of what Jesus is dealing with today, part of what you and I need to deal with. Now, we're not going to get along with everybody perfectly all the time. That's a given. And Jesus had to deal with this. He was opposed. He was hated. He was falsely condemned. He was denied. He was betrayed. They tried to trick him. He was put to death falsely. He knows what he's talking about. And if you and I hold to certain principles, such as our Catholic Christianity, there are people who are going to separate themselves from us. No question. It happened in the early Christian communities. It happens today. Plus, sorry to say, there are times when you and I may feel conflict with those who are real close to us and whom we dearly love. It's going to happen. Husbands and wives, the best of friends. Jesus offered some principles to deal with conflicts and resentments. Now, a little parenthesis over here. Now, sometimes you or I are going to be the party who's been offended. Sometimes you and I are going to be the party or person who's doing the offending. And sometimes we may not even know that we've done that. And sometimes nobody's really done anything wrong, but there are going to be feelings of hurt or disappointment, and something needs to be happening between two people. Now, to follow along on the gospel, let's presume that you or I have been offended by someone. Now, granted, this person may or may not realize that. What can we do? Well, number one, I can gossip, go tell the whole world. I can complain. I can whine. I can give the other person the silent treatment. I can play victim. I can nurse resentments and say, feel sorry for me. Or I can follow the principles of Jesus. Paul reminds us in the second reading that we need to love our neighbor as ourself. And we need to love that other person, even though at this point we might feel some anger toward that other person, who again may or may not even know. So Jesus' first principle is that the party who feels offended should take the initiative and go to the other person privately. And most of the time this works, particularly if the person beginning the conversation has prayed for this other person, really wants to love the other person, is very careful in how he or she explains the situation. Normally it's going to work. But if it doesn't work, then Jesus says, take the situation to a trusted third party. This might mean professional counseling, it might not. This trusted third party. And it takes humility. Our pride can easily sabotage this healing process. And our attitude is very important. Now, what if I am the offending party? Then I take the initiative. I do it now. What if two people have strong feelings about a topic, there's tension between them, but nobody has really harmed the other? That just happens. Well, one or the other needs to approach the other to talk about it. And again, this is usually very productive, unless, of course, there are other major issues underneath. Now, the Diocese of La Crosse has a policy for Catholic Christians within the diocese, for anyone who feels that they have been unjustly treated as part of the diocesan process. If so, step one, you privately go to that person. If that doesn't work, you go to the pastor. Of course, if the pastor is that person, then the next step is you go to the dean. And the next step is you go to the bishop or the bishop's representative in that area. And I have to say that in my many years of experience, it's really rare that any of this ever happens. And if so, it usually gets taken care of in step one. But there is a diocesan policy if someone working within the diocese, meaning within the parish, feels they have been unjustly treated. Now, what happens when we offend God? Well, that's called sin. S-I-N. Sin. But what's interesting, when we sin, it's God really who has already taken the initiative. God is 3 steps ahead of us. The preeminent ministry of Jesus the Christ was the ministry of reconciliation, forgiveness, and healing. Now, forgiveness does not say that there was no sin. No. If there was, there was. But what forgiveness is about is the healing. And Jesus has that power. Jesus takes the initiative and gives us the strength to make it happen, that we do our part. And that part may be going to that other person. And that part certainly involves the sacrament of reconciliation, where again Jesus takes the lead. That's the story. Amen. Hallelujah. God bless.